Hi, my name is Margareta Walker, and this semester I participated in the biology research semester where I worked with Dr. David Luther on a project called AZE Conservation Opportunities, assessing the potential for unprotected AZE sites to qualify as OECMs. More species are at risk of extinction today than ever before in history, often due to anthropogenic causes. Because of this, it is critical that we effectively conserve biodiversity. And in order to do this, we must start by protecting the species and locations that are most vulnerable to extinction. So what are those species and locations? Well, the Alliance for Zero Extinction, or the AZE, has identified locations worldwide known as AZE sites, which are shown on this map in purple, which contain the last remaining populations of one or more endangered species. Currently, 36% of AZE sites are unprotected, according to the World Database on Protected Areas, meaning the site is not covered by a protected area. Now, it is widely known that protected areas conserve biodiversity better than unprotected areas. However, there are also other types of governance and management, known as OECMs, which can also contribute to AZE site conservation. But more information is needed to be able to determine the extent that OECMs occur at AZE sites. OECMs can include things like indigenous lands, community reserves, and local parks, and the main thing with OECMs is that conservation is achieved as a result of the way they're managed, but conservation does not necessarily have to be the primary management objective. My questions this semester were, are any of the AZE sites listed as unprotected according to the WDPA actually being actively managed for conservation in some way? If so, who owns or manages the site, and do any of the sites have the potential to qualify as OECMs? To answer these questions, I took the list of AZE sites that have 0% protection according to the WDPA, and I removed the sites in 10 countries that had been previously assessed. For the remaining sites, I surveyed available databases and literature on the site's trigger species and the site itself to determine ownership and whether the site could qualify as a potential OECM. In order to be a potential OECM, the site had to not be a protected area, it had to have an established management authority, and effective in situ biodiversity conservation had to clearly be an outcome of the way it's managed. I ended up finding that of the 250 sites I assessed, 23% may qualify as potential OECMs, and 13% did not qualify as potential OECMs. I was not able to determine ownership for more than half of the sites, which indicates the need for more information on AZE sites to be obtained and made available. The highest proportion of potential OECMs were owned by indigenous peoples, and therefore OECMs may be an appropriate way to recognize the contributions of indigenous peoples to conservation. This research is important because complete information on land ownership and management of AZE sites is necessary to enable governments and organizations to make the most well-informed conservation decisions possible, especially in this time where so many species are at risk of extinction. Once we determine the best way to conserve an unprotected site, that site should follow the respective procedures to either become an officially recognized protected area or an OECM. And any unprotected sites with no potential to be an OECM should be our top priority for conservation funding and resources moving forward. Thank you.